Sarah had just moved into her first home, a charming but old Victorian house she bought on a whim. Everything was perfect, until she noticed strange creaking noises at night, all coming from the basement. At first, she convinced herself it was just the house settling, but the noises grew louder and more distinct. Every night she'd hear faint tapping and scratching, as if someone, or something, was trying to claw its way up from below. One night, she mustered the courage to investigate. With her heart pounding, she crept down the stairs, clutching her phone as a makeshift flashlight. As she reached the bottom, a shadow flickered across the wall. She froze, staring into the darkness, but saw nothing. Suddenly, her phone light flickered, casting her own shadow across the wall. But when she looked closely, there was another shadow next to hers, taller, and in the shape of a hunched figure. Terrified, she bolted up the stairs and called her friend, who came over immediately. Together, they cautiously explored the basement, uncovering a hidden crawl space concealed behind some old boxes. Inside, they found symbols painted on the wall in faded red paint and, disturbingly, claw marks on the floor. That night, Sarah decided to sleep at her friend's house, and soon after, she moved out, unable to shake the feeling that something was lurking in that basement, waiting for her return. Shadowy. A man named Greg had been renting out his basement to an older woman named Doris. She was quiet, reclusive, and always paid rent on time. Months passed with little interaction, and Greg appreciated her privacy, until he started noticing strange smells coming from the basement. It was a putrid, sickly sweet odor that seemed to seep into his own living space. At first, he thought it might just be her cooking, but the smell worsened. One night, he found strange piles of garbage bags outside his house. They were full of odd items, doll heads, broken clocks, and even a stuffed animal with its eyes cut out. Greg was disturbed, but brushed it off as maybe just old junk she was getting rid of. But curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to knock on her door. There was no response, so he let himself in, figuring she might be asleep or out. As he entered, he was struck by a scene that would haunt him forever. Her apartment was a dim, claustrophobic space, lined with dusty shelves covered in bizarre trinkets. What terrified him most were the dozens of framed photographs of him and his family on the walls. Pictures he had no idea she'd taken. Some were recent, while others were from months ago. In a corner of the room, he found an altar, covered in burned candles, and an old worn notebook, with his name scrawled across the cover hundreds of times. Without a word, Doris had vanished, leaving behind only the eerie relics of her obsession. After calling the police, Greg learned that Doris had a history of unstable behavior, but there were no leads on her current whereabouts. Every now and then, Greg receives postcards with no return address, and he can't shake the feeling that Doris is still watching him from the shadows. A family of 4 moved into an old countryside home, delighted by its rustic charm, but from their first night, they felt an unsettling aura coming from the basement. It was a damp, dark place, with unfinished walls and a strange chill that hung in the air. At night, the walls seemed to emit soft, almost imperceptible whispers. The parents initially thought it was the sound of old pipes or the wind, but the whispers grew louder, forming coherent phrases that echoed in the silence. The youngest daughter, Lucy, was the first to complain about the voices. "She's crying," she told her parents one night, her eyes wide with fear. When her parents asked what she meant, Lucy explained that a sad lady was whispering to her from the walls, asking her for help. Her parents dismissed it as a child's imagination, but then Lucy's older brother started hearing the whispers too. He claimed the voice called out his name, asking him to come downstairs. Terrified but skeptical, the parents decided to spend a night in the basement to prove there was nothing to fear. As they lay in sleeping bags on the cold floor, the whispers began. At first, it was faint, a soft humming. Then, clear words emerged. "I'm still here." The voice was sad, filled with longing and desperation. The mother, horrified, shouted for it to leave them alone, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, in a voice only she could hear, the whisper returned, "I'll never leave." They reached out to a paranormal investigator, who discovered a tragic story tied to the house. A woman, the previous owner's wife, had been imprisoned in the basement by her husband, who kept her hidden from the world. She'd eventually perished, locked away with no one to hear her cries, even after a cleansing ritual. The family occasionally hears faint whispers in the night, a soft, sorrowful reminder of a soul that never found peace.